What's going on, everybody? And welcome to Shooting the Shit with Ray. I know it's been a little bit, I've been up north in Missouri in my outfit there, preparing, getting everything ready, all the shooting lanes and the walking lanes, and checking all the tree stands and getting all the cameras out. And I have just been nonstop getting ready for the upcoming season. Some states have already opened for whitetail, and some states are about to open. We just finished Labor Day weekend. Um, Hope everybody had an amazing weekend. So, with all these states that are about to open and have already opened, I figured I would come out here and do a podcast about physically and mentally preparing for a hunt. It's so strenuous and it's so hard, believe it or not, on someone's mind and body when we go into some of these hunts. And I have, been doing this for a very long time, been outfitting for a very long time and been hunting myself for a very long time. And, I have been able to put myself in a mindset where I don't put pressure on myself and I'm able to stay in the game um, for longer periods of time without overstressing myself on a hunt. And I've seen it so often, more often than not, that you know, some guys go out there and they put so much pressure on themselves to make sure they harvest a buck, and they can't eat a tag, and they got to be successful, and it has to be a certain size, and it has to be that. I see them, they arrive happy and excited, and mid hunt, man, they're just stressed out of their minds. And I want to bring a little bit of clarity with that. And it doesn't have to be in an outfit hunt. It can honestly be on a public land hunt or a private land hunt or an outfitted hunt. It could be anywhere. So we're going to go ahead and kick this off physically and mentally preparing for a hunt, because some states are about to kick off and I want everybody going in there strong. And if you're hunting with me, most likely you've probably hunted with me in the past, and you know how I am and how I like to be positive and how I like to give everybody the best information I can. So here we go. One of the first things is, before you go on your hunt, is always preparing your gear, right? So I always try to say, look at what the forecast is going to be. So make your packing like the very last thing you do, like your clothing wise. Make that the last thing. Look at that extended forecast, see what's in place, see what's going to come. And that all boils down to, so you don't overpack. I would say nowadays 80% of people fly to where they're going, not drive. So you don't really have the luxury of taking everything you want with you. And that rattles even myself sometimes, because you're like, all right, I need to take the bare necessities, but if I skimp on something, it could bite me in the butt while I'm there. Even like when I just did my bear hunt, so you have to kind of be, you don't want to overdo it, but you don't want to underdo it. That's for sure. Sometimes it's better to do a little bit over. So look at that extended forecast. Look what the temperature swings are going to be. Kind of plan your morning. Layers are your friend. And the reason I say layers are your friend is, number one, you won't oversweat yourself to death on some occasions if you have a long walk or whatever. But it gives you also the availability to pack more instead of just one giant jacket and a giant pair of bibs and a giant, you could take, two pairs of thermals, a light pair of pants, and then maybe a lighter bib and a lighter jacket, but you're able to layer to what one big jacket would be, and you can take off and put on throughout your hunt, and windproof, yes, but sometimes windproof is something else that's bulky. So you can get a rain gear layer, and that rain gear layer will make you windproof as well. So, there's ways to play that game, but always looking at the forecast ahead and maybe reaching out to the outfitter or someone that's hunted in this place before, um, and kind of pick their brain on, what have you seen? What should I bring? And then he'll probably look at the forecast and say, I would bring such and such, this and this, and kind of go from there. Hey, everybody, I would like to take a quick second here and say thank you to my sponsors. First of all, I would like to give a big thank you to Tacticam cell cameras. I have been using them for 4 years now and have countless number of success stories using their cell cameras. They have absolutely changed the game. If you haven't checked out a Tacticam cell cam, you will not regret it. Also, I would like to give a big thank you to Weaver Custom Calls. He makes custom turkey calls and they are outstanding. I mean, the guy is part turkey, so definitely go check out Weaver Custom Calls. I would also like to give a big thank you to Dirty South Taxidermy. He's mounted a lot of my deer. He mounts all kinds of animals. Go check out Dirty South Taxidermy. Now let's get back to the show. Like I said, rain gear. So rain gear is always a big thing to bring, and it doesn't always have to be a pair of pants or a jacket. It could just be a poncho. And I always carry one of those little tiny foldable itty bitty little rain ponchos, cheap things in my bag, just because you never know. Sometimes it says 100% clear and you get a little rainstorm that comes through. Or like I like to say, if it's raining, don't wait in your car like this for it to stop raining to then go. I know it sucks to get out of a dry environment and to go walk in the rain, but if you can time it to where, okay, when I sit in the stand, I'll be maybe a couple minutes in the rain and then it's all going to be gone. That is huge because the deer are doing the same thing. They're waiting, and as soon as they see it start letting off, they start walking out to get sun exposure, dry themselves off, and most of the time that's when you would be walking in when the rain has stopped, and then you end up bumping stuff. So the rain jacket plays, a big part of what you're doing. Even, whatever, if it's real windy and you happen not to have any windproof stuff, you could throw a rain jacket on or a parka on and get out of that wind and cut that wind chill into almost nothing, so something to keep in mind. All right, boot choice. So, that's such a hard one because, you know, I feel like almost every state calls for its own boot, right? But when you can wear a rubber boot, even if it's a shorty rubber boot, I always kind of tend to side on a rubber boot just because it does cut your scent a little bit. They're easy to get on and off. Um, 99.9% of them are waterproof. But yes, flying, they are bulky, all of these things. But nowadays, they've cut them down to where they're lighter. And when you're going into a cold environment, lace up boots sometimes tend to do better on cold environments. But what I have noticed with rubber boots is you get a winter rubber boot, and everybody loves to wear these big, bulky socks. They love to put these big, bulky socks on. And well, what happens is this is the front of your boot where your toes would be. And now this is your foot filled to the top with every sock. So now you have no room for air. There's no air in here. So there's nothing for you to heat up in that pocket. So what happens is the cold transfer from that rubber to your foot. Eventually, you're sitting there for 2 hours, 3 hours. You're like, man, my foot's starting to get cold, and it's because your sole of your shoe is sitting on a grate, which the grate is freezing cold, and then the wind on top is freezing cold, and you have no air that you heated up on your walk in. So now your foot will get colder that much faster. Versus if you wore, a thin sock and then another thinner sock on top, now you're like this. You have this much void on the top. So on your walk in, now this whole void is hot air and your foot is off gassing hot, heat. So it's making that air hot. So now it takes longer for your foot to get cold. That's what I've noticed. I've tried it all. Even like when you put a heat pack inside of it, if you're stuffing it full, there's really nothing for that heat pack to work on. If you think about it, when you have a heat pack in a package, it's airtight. So if you basically make your foot in your boot airtight, it's not going to work. So you need a thin sock, a base layer, little tiny thin sock, a wool sock but thin, and then you can put your heat pack, which will keep that void hot. So things I've seen, because a lot of people get their my boots aren't working, and 99.9% of the time it ends up being that their socks are just too big for their boot and they have no airspace to heat. All right, so here we go. When you show up on a hunt and you know everybody is always so focused on having to kill something to make their trip. They have to kill something. They can't go out, they can't come home with a tag sandwich. They have to harvest something. They have to. You don't know this, but you're putting so much pressure on yourself as a hunter by thinking that nonstop, that is what's going to make or break your trip, that you end up honestly making terrible decisions based on your anxiety of just wanting to kill a deer. So we'll kind of go how I personally do it. I always think I'm going to be successful. Always. No matter what the odds, I always, and if you've hunted with me, I always think I'm gonna be successful. It's gonna be a great hunt. We're gonna have a great time. We're gonna see animals. Always, even if I haven't seen a deer the first day, a deer the second day, a deer the third, it doesn't matter. I know that every time I step in the woods, I am positive. I feel like I'm gonna shoot a big deer, and I keep that positivity going, but it keeps my head in the game. Now I'll do it on the flip side. You have a guy that's just stressing over a tag, stressing and stressing and stressing and stressing. You come to me, hey Ray, you know, we're just starting the hunt. It's first day. Everybody's always happy because we have 5 days. Those 5 days go very fast, but we have 5 days. Yep. Okay. So you tell me, hey Ray, you know, I want to shoot X. All right. So this is where I have seen X. He's been there nonstop. He's, you know, sometimes he's gone a day or two and then he shows back up because let's be real. If all these giant deer showed up every single day, everybody would have giant deer hanging on their wall. So obviously, that is not the case. So now we're playing the game of numbers. We're betting that we can sit in that seat long enough to have that specific deer walk by us and us be successful. So it's time, right? So all of a sudden, you're stressed out because you have to shoot a deer, you have to shoot a deer. So you get in the stand and you see a couple bucks and a couple does, but they're all young bucks. So, okay, well, I didn't see the one I wanted. Man. All right, so you go out that afternoon. Maybe it's a slow afternoon. You maybe only see a couple does, a spike. You're sitting there going, man, this is terrible. When honestly, that's an amazing day. You've seen animals, you got to study those animals, see what they're doing, how are they acting, what are they up to. You're learning. Take that as a learning experience. Don't take it as all I saw. No, that's a learning experience what you just went through, you know? Maybe in your home state it would have taken you 3 weeks to see a deer. 2 weeks, 6 hunts, whatever it may be, to see some deer. And all of a sudden you just saw a bunch of deer. That's a blessed day. That's amazing, no matter where you are. So, but now you're stressed out. You go out the second morning. Couple does, couple young bucks, nothing that you want to shoot, none of your targets that we have on camera. And now you start beating on yourself. Okay, I don't know. Maybe that's all that's here. Maybe I should move. I should talk to Ray, or I should maybe move to my second spot that I had on whatever public land or whatever it may be. And you really start digging on yourself hard. And I'm going to tell you what happens more often than not. And if you've hunted with me, you have been there and seen hunters or yourself has gone through this. So, Ray, what do you think? I haven't seen deer, or I've seen a few bucks and a few does, but I haven't seen anything big. What do you think I should do? I feel like I should move and I want to move. And so what happens is I care about everybody and I care about everybody's success and I care about everybody's happiness. So you put me in a predicament to think about things, right? And I'm like, well, I want him happy, but I really think he should stay there. I don't think he should move. So then a lot of the times they'll say, hey, listen, I don't think you should move. You should stay there. Because remember, the more time, let's say you have a target buck on, doesn't have to be with me, anywhere. You have a target buck on camera and you know that deer is there multiple times a week. So you sit there the first day, you don't see that deer. You sit there the second day, you don't see that deer. Instead of thinking that your odds are getting worse the longer you sit because you haven't seen him, think about it on the flip side. Your odds are actually getting better every time you haven't seen that deer because you know he's been there multiple times a week. So eventually that deer is going to show up. So your odds are increasing with every sit, not dropping with every sit. So, especially when you have intel, camera proof, MRI, recent information, he has been there. Your odds are going up every time you don't see this animal. So now I tell the hunter, you know, hey, I don't think you should move, but if you really want to move, then we'll move. Yeah, Ray, I feel like I really want to move. Okay, I don't think you should, but if you really want to, let's do it. But then I also tell them, if I move you, I will put somebody else in that stand because I feel like that's the place to be. And I've had multiple guys tell me, that's fine, go ahead and put somebody in that stand. Guys that have hunted there with me before will immediately walk up to me and say, hey, I'll sit the stand. They sit the stand. Guess what happens that afternoon or the next morning? They kill the buck. And it's time on a stand. Don't get anxious. Don't beat yourself to death, even on public land or private land. When you know, okay, out of all my cameras, this is the camera where the bucks are always at, and you're sitting there on that stand, I can guarantee you more often than not that if you stay to that stand, you will be more successful than if every day you just jumped stands and jumped stands. Because now you're decreasing your odds. You're jumping the stand when maybe that time you jumped, that buck would have been here. And then this time you jumped here, another buck would have been here that you're after. And then you move a stand, and then that buck in that area would have been there that day. Versus if you just stay in one spot that you know this is the most active spot to be, and you just put your time in that stand, you're going to be more successful doing it in that manner versus playing hopscotch. I live it, I do it myself. Everybody, again, that has hunted with me or knows how I hunt, I love to stick to one spot, one stand, and put all my chips in that thing and sit there. And I am very successful in the deer woods doing it in this manner. Now, is there time to move? Of course. I'm not saying this is cut and dry. Obviously, if something changed, whatever, you're seeing that the spot is dead, maybe your neighbor's hunting the fence line, or all of a sudden a big change has happened. There was ag there, and all of a sudden, the day you decide to start hunting that, there's no ag anymore. And all of a sudden the pictures have dwindled, the sightings have dwindled, another camera is turned on fire. Yes, there's always circumstances that you need to make changes, and I'm all for it. But I'm talking about nothing's changed. You're beating yourself in your head because you're pushing yourself so hard because you want to harvest a deer that you end up ruining your own hunt. You get in your own mind and you ruin your own hunt. You're not sitting there just like, you know what? If God's going to bless me and I'm going to shoot my target buck, it's going to happen no matter what. And you just sit there and enjoy Mother Nature and enjoy everything going on and learn what the woods are teaching you. Learn what the different sounds are. When a squirrel starts going crazy for no reason, it's probably a predator or a buck walking under it and got it to go crazy. When you hear the crows start to go crazy and do their noises, okay, what happened? Oh, a deer showed up. All right, well, now I know when the crows or the squirrels or this goes crazy, I should really start paying attention a lot more into what's about to come in because a lot of the times I'll be sitting there just relaxing and beep 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 beep. You'll hear the squirrel start going crazy and you'll just start paying attention and boom, there shows up a deer. And it's just the woods letting you know, but those are all teaching moments, when you hear that's a deer clearing out its nose from eating or whatever flew in its nose. But a lot of the times, you're just like, oh well, that's nothing. No, if you understand what that was, now you're on alert to start looking through and start paying attention exactly what that was. All little things that make a big puzzle come together and make you successful. But when you're in your mind so stressed out, you miss all of that because you're trying to pressure and force something. And I really do believe that that creates a vibe, an aura around you that I know it might sound crazy, but the animals feel it. Like they feel that pressure, that stress that you're bringing around you. If you're happy, go lucky, and you're just doing your thing, and you're just happy to be out there, and man, there are so many hunters that I know that are just successful on an every year basis with me. And you could go back on Instagram and look at all the pictures of these guys. And honestly, 99.9% of them, they're just go lucky, happy hunting guys. They don't live, breathe, and study, and they're just happy go lucky. They love to hunt. They understand hunting. They know that it's Mother Nature, and whatever God's gonna put in front of you, that's going to be your week. But I just feel like that vibe, that good persona, that vibe you're in, that just produces happiness and produces animals and produces whatever you're doing in anything, honestly, no matter what it is. I just think that's a great way to go about it. Don't stress yourself about a tag. Whatever, if you go home and you eat a tag, yes, did you pay money for a hunt? Did you pay money for a lease? Did you pay money to go to a public land and the hotel and the tags and the food and all of this? Yes, but that's part of it. That's part of the experience. I mean, honestly, if you really want to just buy a deer, then just go to a high fence and you'll have zero stress. Pay all this hype money and go shoot the deer that you want, a la carte. There it is. I want this one. Shoot, zero stress. But that's not why the most of us do this. We love the sport. We love the grind. We love the surprise. The highs and the lows that it brings. That's what drives us to do this more. So don't all of a sudden beat yourself up with a necessity of you have to harvest something. No, just a terrible way to go about it. And I know I went on for a little bit about that, but I really feel strongly about it. So on a hunt, we talked about enjoying the hunt, living in the hunt, living the experience of the hunt, but you also have to listen to your guide. And a guide is not always necessarily an outfitter, a person. It could be a trail camera. It could be a guide of what you're personally seeing or what someone else is telling you. It doesn't always have to be a person. Your camera is a guide, right? It's guiding you to go sit a spot. So if you have four cameras out and two of them are on fire, like you know for a fact that those deer are there, well, don't go pick something just because, well, I like this area better. It's a little bit more open. I think maybe that camera's missing some stuff. Well, you should have scouted a long time ago then if that's the case. Go to the most recent information. Go to that information and you hunt that information and you stay on top of that information. And that information can change, but listen to it. When your guide or outfitter says, "Hey, you know, I would stay here." And I'll some of the times I'll tell the guys, listen, I think you should move because whatever, they're not doing what I think they should be doing. The cameras have been dead. We should move over here. Sometimes I do that, and it's so we're not just sticking to a spot. You're just consistently checking all the info you're getting. But if you have information or a guide or and I understand if you're new and you're going to an outfitter, whoever it may be, I understand there's a lack of trust because you haven't met the guy. And happens to me too. But just remember this. You've already given your money. You've already booked your flight, your rental car. You've already taken the time off of work. Trust the guy. Trust him. Trust him. No matter what, you can't change it anyway. So you put all your trust in that person. And you let it ride out however it's going to ride out. And by the end of the trip, you can sit back and analyze and say, okay, you know, was it right moves? Was it wrong moves? Did I feel like I was being put in the right spot? Did I feel like those are all different things, but you don't second guess. Go with it. You know, it's in my best interest to get you a deer. It's in my best interest to put you in the best spots because I need my guys successful. I don't run hunters every 5 days. I personally don't do that. I run a select time throughout the season when I think the best opportunity and the best success rates will be, and that's when I host my hunts. And I need my guys to be successful. I want them to be successful. And that's why a lot of my guys return back every year. and they're like family, and we have such a good time. But don't second guess wherever you're going. Don't do that. You just go in open heartedly. Here I am. This is the deer that I would like to shoot. Where do you want me to go? Point me in a direction, and I will put my time in there. And here we go. And that's the way you do it, in my opinion. Mental preparation for long sits, right? So I would never tell my guys to sit all day if there's no need to sit all day, because I don't want to mentally break them down for when a positive time, for when and a good time happens and a buck steps out, you're kind of burnt out and maybe not on your 100% focus. Um, and backtracking just a second, you know, when you're so stressed out, and let's say you've sat 3 sits, 4 sits, 5 sits, and you haven't had an encounter with a big deer yet, and if you're so stressed out about a situation, and all of a sudden the buck you're after appears, what I've seen more often than not, a bad shot take place, because now you're rushing yourself to capitalize instead of just knowing that it was going to happen. So it's going to happen, and you're calmer. You're so anxious because, oh my gosh, you get caught off guard, and you end up making a bad shot. So, really relax, have a good time. But anyway, sorry. So, preparing your mind for an all day sit. So, I kind of make all day sits, I kind of do tasks for myself throughout it. So, whatever, if it's the rut, early morning, as the sun's rising, sometimes I like to rattle because I've noticed they fight a lot more at that twilight time. So, I rattle a little bit, grunt a little bit sometimes. Then I'll wait, let Mother Nature do its course, let them do their thing. And then maybe at another set time, I'll rattle, grunt, relax, see what happens. Then at another set time, relax, eat my lunch. And then after I eat my lunch, then usually we're on the back half of the day. So, same thing, 2 o'clock, rattle. But I kind of make goals for myself throughout a day just to keep my mind going. I don't let anything deter me. I don't let, the lack of deer, the lack of movement. It takes a split second to change your whole day around. Your whole day. It takes a split second. You could be sitting there all day with nothing happening, and all of a sudden at 1 o'clock, here comes this giant walking out, and in 30 seconds, your day went from being the lowest of the low to the highest of the high, and it's the best day ever. So was it worth it? Yes. So that's something to really gauge on your cameras, whether you should sit all day or not, or a moon phase, right? So, like right now, I'm getting a lot of movement as of today. Today, I'm getting a lot of movement, like from good early morning movement, but I'm getting movement from like 10:30 to like 12, 1 o'clock. And it's the moon phase. They're just moving a lot more during the middle of the day than normal, but it's September. And would you ever think about hunting it in September at midday? No, never. But depending on what you're given, moon phase, weather, all of that stuff, that should kind of say, okay, my cameras, oh man, yesterday there was a lot of movement midday. Hey guys, if I were you, I would maybe extend my sit a little longer in my stand tomorrow, even though I know it's a little, mid October, whatever, early season. Let's try and see, because I had a lot of midday activity. Or, you know what? By 11 o'clock, there's been no movement. Everybody should get down at 11, come in, have lunch. So, those are things that kind of go as you're growing. But now in December, you sit all day. That, I mean, November, you sit all day in November. Late October, that last week of October, you can start pushing your hunts a little more. First week of November, second, third, you could start pushing those all day sits, all day sits, all day sits, because I've had majority of those big bucks are shot middle of the day. And what it is those bucks, mature bucks, they're not going to go out there and bump every doe and every bump. They're not going to waste their time. So what they do is the morning happens, all the does transition to their bedding. All of a sudden now it's 10:30, 11 o'clock, 11:30. Those big bucks get on their feet and they go downwind of every doe bedding area, and they're able to check multiple does at one time, just edging their bedding area. When they edge a bedding area, boom, they pick up an estrus doe, then they'll walk in that bed and find her and start pushing her and do his thing. But that's why you have a lot of them big mature bucks move later, because they're not a young buck. They're not going to go and chase 50,000 does all over this cornfield. They're just going to be like, no, well, I know all of these are going to end up here and all of those are going to end up there. So I'm just going to let them go there. And then I'm going to go find and see who's hot and who's not. Easy for them. So that's why a lot of them big bucks get shot midday. And then you have the ones that are, they know, they hear a lot of movement because people get down early, so they let them get down. Once they all leave, then they know, okay, usually around this time I don't hear anybody else till later, and they get up and they do their thing. And then, that's why sometimes you'll get off your stand, get to the car, look at your camera and be like, son of a gun, if I was there 20 more minutes, I would have seen him. He's used to it. He heard you get down, you left, he knows there's nothing to worry about now. He gets up and he does his thing. So those are things you have to pay attention to. Like, all right, well, from now on, I'm going to sit on my stand longer and let's see what this deer does. Or, you know, I've I've done it. I've had people do it. You get off your stand. If that's, if he repeats it, get off your stand, sneak back up your stand and see what happens. See if you could trick that deer. If he starts creating a pattern, you can do that. Or, you know, like some people in other states, they get dropped off at their stand. And I've always said, sometimes you could walk in two together, one leave, and try to trick their brain to be like, oh, that's whatever just made that noise just left. But no, you're still in the stand capitalizing. So there's always little tricks in certain circumstances that I've seen work. So just remember, like again, this all relates to everything: public land, lease land, outfitted, whatever. Number one, you can't shoot them from the couch. Not going to happen. You have all this time, like we said, flight or driving, hotel, food, ice, time from work, time away from the family. You have all of this. And sometimes, no matter where I'm at, or even, in my outfit, I'll have guys come in the house and it's 9 o'clock in the morning. And you're like, what are you doing here at 9 o'clock in the morning? Well, I just figured that, you know, not too much moved. So I'm just going to come in, have lunch, and I'll go back out in the afternoon. And then I'll be sitting there looking at cameras and I'm like, dude, you have all these deer moving. Oh, man. Well, tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. It's like you're there and you have one goal while you're there. And your one goal is to be successful and to spend time in the woods. And if you're not putting your true effort in being in the woods and giving it all you have, you can't sit there and be like, oh, I didn't shoot anything or I didn't see anything. You didn't put time in. I mean, what did you expect? For it to be like a TV show that you think only took, well, I watched this TV show in 30 minutes and, a deer died. Yeah, but most of these filmers, they have countless numbers of days, hours, weeks, months into one 30-minute video. And I know it because a lot of my friends are outdoor TV guys. And you wouldn't believe the amount of hours logged to make a 30-minute video. I mean, even if I wanted to do it, man, you're talking, it's a lot of time. So you need to go with the mindset of, all right, I'm going to be successful and I am not going to not be successful because of me not trying. I'm going to leave everything on the table. I'm going to go. I'm going to put as many hours as I can, as many hours as I think is correct, or whatever your outfitter or cameras or whatever may say. This is, what I'm going to do every day. And, the only thing that might get me is, hey, he might not show up. Mother Nature might throw me a curveball and do 90-degree days, or, you know, 50-mile-an-hour winds, or complete downpour, or who knows? but it ain't going to be your lack of trying that didn't get you your deer. So don't beat yourself up. Be happy. Go in there with the right mindset. Trust whoever you're going with. Trust your decision on public land or whatever it is. Trust your own decision. That hunter instinct, more often than not, is correct. When you can get in that vibe with them, you can start making good decisions. But don't let your decision of, well, I sat here, I didn't see anything, so I'm going to move. I sat here, I didn't see anything, so I'm going to move. Honestly, yes, has it worked? Of course it's worked, but not as much as just sticking to a spot. So just don't let you destroy your hunt. Go in there prepared to sit all day. You have nothing else to do. Nothing else. Took all this time to do this. You have nothing else to do but to sit there. What's the point of, well, I'm going to get down and I'm going to go out and I'm going to have lunch and then I'm going to come back in, and what's the point then? What's the point? Unless you have to stretch your legs or you have a bad back or an issue, but if you're comfortable just sitting there, what's the point? Have lunch there. Eat there. Relax. Take your time. Enjoy it. You never know what could happen. Never. Well, I know it was a little bit longer show than normal, but I hope this really helps, you out in your mindset. I know it, I get into it in a groove sometimes, and I just kind of try to stay positive and you know, work out all the negativity around you to be more successful. But I hope this has helped you. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop a comment. Let me know what you think about the show. Um, and honestly, no matter where you're hunting, I hope you guys are super successful. I hope you guys slam some giants this year. Shoot me some pictures on Instagram. It's RMA Outfitters. Shoot me some pictures there, and would love to see them. But until the next show, hope this has helped you. Drop a comment, drop a like, follow. Till the next time, guys, I'll see you later.